So the next dish we're going to do is with winter squash. Now winter squash is definitely different than summer squash and zucchini. It actually is going to have a very, very hard outside skin. And the reason it does is so we can store it out through the winter. Winter squash can be a butternut squash, an acorn squash, a spaghetti squash, but they can store for a long period of time, from anywhere from 3 months up to 6 months. You want to make sure that it has a firm skin on the outside, doesn't have any soft spots. What we're going to do with the acorn squash here is we're going to cut off both ends. We'll actually cut it in half and then scoop out the seeds. One preparation from there is to actually just cut it in half and then scoop out the seeds, and you can lightly oil it and salt it and just roast it, and then you can harvest the meat of the squash afterwards. The way we're doing it here is we're actually going to simmer it in a pan. We're going to add in a little bit of soy sauce and some honey to add a little more sweetness to it. So we're actually going to want to take off the skin prior to. So with the squash, we're going to cut off both ends, and this is where it's definitely a hard vegetable, so we want to make sure and have a firm hold on it, the knife. Couple different ways you can do it. You can compost those top parts. You can come around and curve the outside off, or you can cut into pieces and get small chunks to take the outside off. I'm just going to go ahead and take the outside off here. So again, you can do this with a peeler, but again, it's going to take you a lot longer because you might have to do more than one pass over since this skin is so thick. So I'll do half one way and half the other way. So I've got about a little over half of the peel off there. And again, I just want to get till I get that green peel in this case off. I'll cut this in half, and then we'll scoop that out. The other side, if I just had it done normally, what I could do is scoop out the center part of the squash. So I cut it direct, cut the top off, cut the bottom off, scoop out the seeds. I just want to get just a little bit more than the seeds. A little bit of the kind of slightly stringy part in the center is fine. And then from there, I can cut into smaller sections. And so on there, I can just cut these the short distance in order to take it off. But it's going to take you a little bit longer. It's a little bit easier because you have a shorter distance to cut through. So it might be a little bit easier than following the entire squash to cut off that outer peel. So my preference definitely is to cut the this way, but it is going to take a little bit of skill to kind of curve around the outside. So once you have all the peel off, just go through, check to make sure there's no more pieces of the peel sticking on. Go ahead and scoop out that other side here as well. So from here what we can do is we can just cut into small wedges, and then those we cut into small chunks. So with items such as squash that take a little bit more force to go through, you're going to make sure you're definitely being careful and not having your fingers underneath the blade, because if you were to have it somewhere underneath the blade there, you have to apply a little bit more pressure, so you're more prone to possibly cut through the item and accidentally cut yourself. All right, so what we have over here is our saute pan. You could use a saucepan. I want to have a saute pan so you can see more of the cooking process here. To start off with, we're just going to place the squash directly into the pan. Then we're going to add in about a half cup of water. And in this case, we might add just a little bit more, a little bit later on. If it had closer sides that were straight up, it might not evaporate quite as quickly. So we'll let this start for now. And then we'll have this at about a medium heat. All right, so we've added the water in, and now it's time to go ahead and we can add in a little bit of our soy and honey. And this is also going to be something that's really up to you. If you want a little bit sweeter, you can add a little bit more. And then also at the end, you can add a little bit more soy. The soy in this case is going to be our sodium or our salt. So we can definitely add that to taste at the end. And so now we can cover it. In this case, we can just use another saute pan. Cover it and simmer it. It can be anywhere from 15, 20, 30 minutes until it's tender, depending on the size of the chunks. All right, so it's been about 15 minutes. You can see most of our water is actually reduced now, and we have a nice glaze. We can actually probably go ahead and just finish it with the top off here if we know that our squash is done. I'm going to go ahead and taste it now. See how it is. Very good. Now I do have a Teflon coated mouth, so you might want to let that cool a little bit more, but I think we do need a hair more sweetness, and then definitely a little bit more of salt also. Just a little bit more honey there, a little more salt, or soy sauce in this case. We'll just let that coat it. Cover our nice glaze, and now we have our nice, wonderful winter squash to serve as a side dish.